Well, our little corner is going to be on the move again as we have only a few days left before the new millennium. We've got Calvin's car, and he's trusting me and my seatbelt in the front seat. And Mayor Clyde Rabideau in the back seat. How you doing, Clyde?
I'm doing fine, and when you say little corner, you're not kidding.
Boy, I'll tell you.
It's warm in here. It's 2 below 0 outside.
Yeah,
right now, so it's a cozy, warm little corner.
We're on the 28th day of December, 1999, and this is part of a current series that Calvin dreamed up a couple of months ago to go around the various towns in Clinton County and see what the buildings and stores look like now before the new millennium begins. So that sometime 20, 30, 40 years hence, people can go back and view these things and say, oh yeah, there was a store in that corner, and oh yeah, my great-grandmother lived in that house, and things of that nature. So we're going to take a little tour of the city of Plattsburgh this morning and just give you a little pattern commentary as to what we think about what we see, how the buildings may have changed over the years since Clyde has been mayor and since I've been around, and what you might expect in the future. So let's begin. Clyde, where do you want to start?
Let's hang a left and go right through downtown, which has enjoyed a tremendous renaissance during the last decade of the 90s. And it's really come alive. As you know, in 1974, there's this big, huge corporate conglomerate known as Pyramid Corporation that came in and put a shopping mall, the first indoor shopping mall in the North Country, just outside of town, literally sucking out all the business and vitality of our downtown shopping district. But you know, 20 years later, it's come back, and now we have a lot of activity down here. Although it's 2 below 0, you don't see too much pedestrian traffic, and it's not quite 9 a.m. There is just about every storefront filled with business and commerce. And as we go down the street, you can see that the Christmas decorations are still up, as we're in the week between Christmas and New Year's. New Year's of the year 2000. And at night, what a beautiful sight it is, because those lights shine and the decorations glimmer, and there's a real spirit here in our downtown Plattsburgh.
How is this, what we're looking at now, changed since you've been mayor, Clyde?
Well, if we can slow down a little bit, this corner was called the Diamond not too long ago. And if you call up anybody and ask where the Diamond is, they probably don't know where it is. But this was literally the intersections of Routes 3 and 9, although the traffic pattern has changed a touch. It's still an important area. This is literally the center of the city right here. And if you bear left and just take a look, you'll see Lake Champlain. And then right, you'll see Protection Alley, which is very famous because the monopole is there and other great establishments. But this street that we're on was one way for 20 years, and just a couple years ago we changed it back to two-way, and that really helped spur business in downtown Plattsburgh. To the right is Key Bank, which was National Commercial Bank and Trust Company when I was born, and my father worked there, and now my mother works there. And right there to the right is the Federal Building, which was once the post office, and it's still the site of federal offices. But I can remember, and you probably participated and enjoyed the hotels that were here. There was the Union and the Witherell. What did we miss? What was the third one?
The Cumberland was up on the other end.
Was down there, but the Union and the Witherell were great hotels and gathering spots for people of all ages. And I was told that there was a lot of consumption of different adult beverages there, but I wouldn't know anything about it because I was much too young. But Gordy, I understand that your name was carved in a few stools in the pubs there.
We do remember the fife and drum. And
the fife and drum.
And about 10 years ago, we sat down and tried to remember the names of all the bars in Clinton County, never mind right here in the city of Plattsburgh 35, 40 years ago.
It was sad in a way to lose a hotel, not to say 3 hotels in our downtown, because that brought a lot of people to the center of the city. But things changed. The interstate came in, hotels and motels went out to join the interstate at the major intersections, and downtowns in small cities like ours suffered the consequences. But it'll come back, and I'm told by developers of hotels that when you see a hotel, that's a result of a lot of great things happening in a particular area or a region. And those things are happening right now. A critical mass of shopping facilities, cultural venues, and historical sites. And those things are developing now. And when you see a hotel again built in our downtown, you'll know that we've completed our duties in that regard.
It's been very hard to get downtown of the city
Gordy,
of
can I
Plattsburgh.
interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Did we check out Arnie's across the way?
We've talked about it so long.
Well, you know, it's so funny because we were talking about going there. In fact, Christmas Eve, we went out after cooking for 12 hours, we went out for pizza at Arnie's, had a pizza delivered from Arnie's because we just had that craving. That's after cooking Christmas food for 12 hours.
Talk about a landmark in downtown
Yeah.
Plattsburgh. And Mickey's used to be there way before your time, and then Arnie moved in, and there's been an establishment ever since, and I've spent every New Year's Eve there for a long, long time. As I started to say, Clyde, it's hard to get a downtown to come back. This downtown, parts of it looked pretty shabby for a while,
Oh,
didn't
they
it?
did, and it has come back. It's been hailed as a success story and a comeback story. And as we look to our left and we see the vista of the farmer's market and farmer's market, it doesn't take much of a memory to reflect upon what it looked like. It was a shabby, bisected parking lot, once the site of Tal Blade Company that employed hundreds of people, decrepit brick buildings that were torn down, and then it was just left in disrepair. But now it's a beautiful site on the banks of the Saranac River and a site of local commerce and activity when the farmers come here and sell their wares and produce in this building. And there are 700 parking spaces right here where people park and go to work and shop in our downtown. But these buildings to our left were literally the backsides of buildings that fronted on Margaret Street. And now they've come and turned their faces around to look at the parking area and the great access that we have here on Durkee Street. And the people here at Maui North have done a great job. They have one heck of a business going here. And they've done a good job, and they've decorated their building with these banners and signs and access. The next building was in a warehouse, Silas, am I right? Or Vilas, please excuse me. The Vilas warehouse. It's for sale now, but it was just renovated. And then we have the sign maker, which is part of this Maison Heritage building that's generated a lot of commerce from Canada. And hopefully decades ahead, they'll say, oh, this is where that incubator started. Well, this is where that business started. Affordable Furniture's done a credible job here in the corner. They literally front on 3 streets. But we talked about the Diamond. The Diamond has transferred, in my way of thinking, to this corner, the corner of Durkee and Bridge Street, where it's very, very busy morning, noon, and night. And as we bear right, we look at Lake Champlain and we head down towards our lakefront, which is blossoming and soon to blossom more when we begin construction of the Lakefront Heritage Trail on Plattsburgh Air Force Base. That'll literally end near the harbor and again connect with another part of the Heritage Trail that brings us to the city beach in the north.
It's been kind of a dream of yours too, hasn't it?
It's been a long-standing dream that's taken a lot of work. We've got a lot of success behind it and a lot of built up. Regretfully, I won't be mayor when we break ground on the Lakefront Trail that we fought so long and hard for and got funding for on Plattsburgh Air Force Base. But I'll still be around, if not physically in spirit, because that, as you said, Gordy, was a dream of mine, and I'm sure it'll be well appreciated by generations to come here in the North Country.
You see a new tower on the right-hand side connected with Falcon Cable during a storm called Floyd.
You know, when I get up in the morning from where I live, I can see the tower out my bedroom window. And I got up that morning, and the tower
was
there.
not there.
I said, what the heck's going on?
Hurricane Floyd did a number on us.
I'm used to putting on my reading glasses to see the newspaper, but I don't really need glasses for distance. You know, one of the landmarks of Plattsburgh is this D&H building. What a beautiful building owned by the Clute brothers. And they've kept great care of it. There's businesses there today. And what a landmark. What history has transpired at this landmark and across the street from it. And there's some debate about the pronunciation because so often these French names get mispronounced and misspelled, and you don't know if it's the Fouquet House or the Fouquet House. Gordy, what's your call?
I would say Fouquet.
Okay, you say Fouquet,
Yeah,
I say Fouquet.
tomato.
Pajama.
I'd say it rhyme with bouquet.
A great part of the history of the city of Plattsburgh,
Which
right
once
here.
had another floor on it that burned, I told, and they tore it off. There are some people that say insurance companies were charging more for 3 floors, and a lot of people tore the 3rd floor off to save on insurance. I don't know. But we're heading down Bridge Street. literally to our lakefront.
Tremendous history in this area.
With the railroads and the coal, which was once docking coal, and now
Baker Lumber Company and many things back in the 1800s.
Mason.
Yep, Mason
Mason
too.
Lumber, which is right to our right, which is torn down by a construction company known as Rabideau Brothers Construction Company, and built into a doctor's office complex. Things change. Things change. But there still is some coal dust around here. This is where all the coal of the Plattsburgh region was brought in by barge and rail and distributed here by the Docking Coal Company. I think they also had oil too, didn't they have oil?
Probably.
Probably, because oil, any kind of energy consumption. Big restaurant here in Knoll is the Naked Turtle. It's kind of a strange name, even to us here in 1999. 50 years from now, it'll sound stranger, but that's the name of it, the Naked Turtle Restaurant. And see all the boats here, most of them owned by people to the north. And who could forget Frank Pabst, an icon of the 20th century, but probably an icon of the 21st century, for all we know.
With his Juniper boat tours.
Juniper boat tours.
His interesting view of history about Lake Champlain.
And
But
you know, it's funny, I recall not too long ago the roundhouse burning down. And the roundhouse was made of brick in a U shape, and they had a trestle that at one time rotated, so a car was brought in, it was rotated to the right port, and then chugged in for repair or storage, and then brought out to the trestle, then put on the track. Here we only have left of a vestige of a warehouse. It's filled with salt now, but who knows what it was filled up for the last 100 years or so. But part of our history goes when you lose a roundhouse. They don't make roundhouses anymore, and it was a real vintage roundhouse. Part of this D&H complex, these rail yards that were once teeming and bustling with cars going in and out north and south to Canada, down to Albany, at one time out west to Moores and Chateauguay, Line Mountain, where they trucked in iron ore. And as a kid at Morrisonville Elementary School in 4th grade, Mrs. Pelham's class, we used to count the cars. 98 cars of iron ore I can recall going by. That was one of the records that year. But it ceased, told almost about 28 years ago when the mine shut down. But iron ore was another commodity that was produced here and trucked through the Plattsburgh area. Right now we're heading through what's called the Point Historic District. Macomb and McDonough Streets, one of the most gracious homes in the city of Plattsburgh, now owned by John J. McKenna, a local architect, is right over here. 2123 Macomb Street. You can see the tower out there. And I can recall going to lavish 4th of July parties and standing with about 10 or 12 people in that cupola at the top and watching the fireworks being blasted off from nearby Plattsburgh Air Force Base. And old John J. McKenna, I'll tell you, he never lacked when it came to putting on a soiree. He had catered with everything from soup to nuts to caviar. And standing up there with champagne and watching the fireworks was a great memory of mine. Regretfully, John J. McKenna doesn't do it anymore. Probably can't afford it. But a heck of a lot of fun.
it's nice that many of these old buildings have survived.
Just barely, but the people and families moving back in have made it their passion to retain these buildings and restore them to their original form. This is a mix now of industrial residential area and commercial area that is being reclaimed more and more by residences. The industrial buildings and warehouses seen just across the J Street here on the lakeside and rail side are owned by the Bouyer family, a very prominent family in town. They were great entrepreneurs and city leaders. Leander Bouyer was once mayor of the city of Plattsburgh, one of the great mayors of the city of Plattsburgh. And his descendants, George Bouyer and George Bouyer Jr., are doing a great job still manufacturing paper products here and doing some storage. As we wrap around, we're looking at the vista here of the Officers Club, another site of some grand soirees that I can remember. Some 200 testimonials hosted by Clyde A. Lewis, another icon of the 20th century here in the North Country. And who can forget his sidekick, Joe Bornstein, who wrapped up
The old
every
soldier.
single one.
Every
Clyde
one.
A missed one of those testimonials, but Joe Bornstein was that one. And why don't we take a left here and let's loop around Plattsburgh Air Force Base while we're at it. We're going down Hamilton Street, another street in the historic district, where the more prominent families had their homes constructed, where they could watch over and be near their commerce and commodities and sites of business.
Some controversy over whether to leave these gates, side gates open on the former
If
base.
you want the base part of the city of Plattsburgh, you leave the gate open. And that's my view on it. And as you can see, there's not a lot of traffic here, but it's part of the community. That's how you integrate a community.
Back in the mid-50s when I worked on construction, that's the way I'd leave when I'd finish work at night, right out that end.
I mean, it was open before, it's going to be open again. That's all there is to it. This Officers Club, what a great place. So many banquets and testimonials and salutes to people in power of the whole country, in fact, of the whole free world. And when we talk about free world, literally Plattsburgh Air Force Base performed admirable service and was an important part of protecting our country during the Cold War. To our left are newer buildings, which are once was called the Bachelor's Officers Quarters, the BOQ. Now it's called, I don't know what it's called. There was a more politically correct term that was generated in the 1990s. We'll see it, U. Okay, U stands for what? Unmarried Officers Quarters. There we go.
You
All
think
right.
so, huh?
Visiting Officers Quarters,
Okay.
BOQ, that didn't change. And then to our right, newer townhouse type of buildings. Directly in front of us is the old chapel, and we're going to have to show the people of the North Country where the mayor lives, and that's coming up to on our right. Right now it's 180C. I live in a second-story flat. It's a nice building. There's a porch on it, and that's been the site of some grand soirees too. Been a lot of fun living here in Plattsburgh Air Force Base.
You know, I was, when they said they were going to close the base, my first reaction was, oh, don't touch the chapel. That's where Kay and I were married.
I'll be darned. Well, that's a
And
beautiful-
others of my kids and friends.
beautiful church, and this was Colonel's Row or Snob Row, or what are some other nicknames of these buildings coming up on the Oval? Gordon?
Great members and
Actually, it's where all the senior officers all lived here. And these buildings are huge. Duplex alone had 6 bedrooms, storage rooms, formal dining rooms, 3 or 4 fireplaces, and to heat them is quite an undertaking. And to our left right now is the band shell, the gazebo.
this
Again,
is a very historic area in Plattsburgh Air Force Base. This oval, as we called it,
the
has been
commandant's house to our right,
Wow.
the commander's house. Again, a site of some great summer parties, and on the 4th of July, fireworks will be blasted over this oval. But there's a fireworks of a different kind that happen over this oval now, and that's the site of soccer games and baseball games, and hundreds of kids are out there every weekend, 3 months out of the year, enjoying themselves. And my father, in the early 50s, tells me he played his championship CCIL soccer game right here. I don't know if they won or lost. I can't remember.
We interviewed Sal Riggy and did a wonderful program with our friend Sal, and he has pictures of his dad out here in the companies on Plattsburgh Air Force Base when it was really a hopping place back in the 1930s,
Yeah.
1940s.
And you know, there was more integration with the community and the military installation back then. All the gates were open, and there was just a natural interaction that happened. But we still have these officers' quarters to our right, and across the vista, we see I call the old ROTC building. I don't know if there's a better terminology for it.
ROTC was born here in
That's
Plattsburgh.
exactly right, the Plattsburgh idea. And the old hospital, administration building, the old gym. Quite a segment of history, not of just Plattsburgh, but the entire country right here. And right in front of us was the command headquarters here, the old base HQ. Again, and it's 1890 what on that. We can't see it from here, but I drive by it every day. I should know it. My father worked in this building in the last few years at Plattsburgh Air Force Base. He was Deputy Chief of Accounting and Finance, and Accounting and Finance has moved to this building. Packed full of people, uniformed and non-uniformed, here. My father had to transfer to Ottawa and Hawaii to finish out and gain his retirement. fact, he's flying in today and he'll be picking up at 11:40 in Burlington, Vermont. And let's look at that date, 1892? 93. 1893, when it was constructed, over 100 years ago.
Fortunately, there are a lot of old photographs that do survive, so we can get a little perspective.
You know, some of these buildings, like the one to our left, which is now part of the civil engineering compound, were meant for horses. They were horse barns. And the cavalry, I guess, was here. I don't know if the infantry, obviously, is not cavalry, but they had horses and utilized them a great deal. But it's very, very interesting as we take a right, try to leave the old base, and we look at some of the great buildings. And I know that we're going to see the old stone barracks where Ulysses S. Grant, there was one station. I can imagine him, we can see the old barracks, sitting out there with his cigar. I'm sure he smoked a cigar late at night with his feet up on the railing of the old barracks. I'm sure that must have been quite a sight. And to be here and look at a young lieutenant that would one day lead our nation literally to victory and unification during the Civil War, and then to lead our country as President of the United States of America.
Who could ever forget the emotion that you and I generated
Just down the street.
on this
8,000
street?
people.
Unbelievable.
8,000 people showed up to show their support for Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Not once, but twice. Lining this boulevard in front of the hospital. Quite a sight. Quite a jolt of emotion that goes through me when I reflect upon our local fight to keep Plattsburgh Air Force Base here in our community.
Many of our friends viewing may not be aware that we were under the impression that this base operation was going to expand just before we got the bombshell.
The Air Force chose Plattsburgh Air Force Base as the northeast base for what would be the MAC. It was different terms. There was MAC and SAC and TAC, Tactical Air Command, Strategic Air Command, and it must have been Military Air Command for logistics. But we were chosen and they were gearing us up to expand. And just because we were the logical place, best position, had the best facilities, the best location, and chosen by the Air Force, we are naive enough to think that the politicians would do the right thing and go with the Air Force's recommendation and keep us open and expand us. That came for naught in 1993 when we were doomed by intrigue and politics and malfeasance. And I'll rest with those,
Well,
those terms.
You got the terms that apply.
And
it was amazing.
There was one person of honor, and it was a woman. What was her name? It was a 7-1 or 8-1 vote. And I think her first name was Teresa. Well, I'll call her Saint Teresa. How's that? But it was an 8-1 vote, and she said we were the right place.
And that's after we had already won the battle on the BRAC before that
2 years before.
against a base up in Maine to stay open,
The same
based on
technique.
that quality of life that you and I have talked about so many times.
There's just so much more to it than that, but you got to move on, and we moved on very quickly, and I hope that we can go to something that came directly after Plattsburgh Air Force Base, and that's the Bombardier Company, which has literally spawned a host of mass transit component manufacturers and other manufacturers in the area that have replaced all the jobs lost by the closure of Plattsburgh Air Force Base.
You know, it's a good point because we've visited other areas where bases closed, and it took them a long time to get back on balance.
No, we're different. We bounced back, and it's still a bitter taste thinking about why the base closed, but it's a sweet taste to think about how we came together as a community, how we put together a plan, and how we attracted industry, and we replaced the jobs, and how we are now forming a new identity as a mass transit manufacturing center of not just the northeast of the United States, but literally of the country and the world. And so this might be a talk of the genesis that people a half century later will look back upon and say, wow, that's how they started. They took a bad situation and made a good situation out of it. What character that city had, what character that leadership of that city had. But it does take character, it takes resolute will to make a comeback like we made a comeback. A lot of people, a lot of communities will just sit back and look at their wounds and feel sorry for themselves and say, woe is me. bad thing happen to me that was undeserved and just wait for fate. We did not do that. We got together and surged ahead and determined our own fate, literally.
You know, they say everything has its time and place. Do you feel as though you were a part of the political picture in this town at an opportune time, a good time?
Yeah, I was talking with my friend Jack Stewart, another historian, about it, and the local newspaper was rating mayors and so forth. And he congratulated me for my ranking, and I said, you know, Jack, it's just like generals. General Patton would never have been a great general if there wasn't any war for him to fight or wars for him to fight. It just happened that I was confronted with some huge challenges, and I was there in a leadership position, and I believe I performed very, very well. And the proof is literally in front of us as we approach the Bombardier Manufacturing Company, bringing that company in. The proof is there making the comeback in downtown Plattsburgh. The proof is there when we recovered from the ice storm in such a quick and efficient fashion that people thought an ice storm really didn't happen in our city, but it did. So call it fortune or call it fate. Some leaders become leaders because they're faced with these types of challenges. Without those type of challenges happening, then you never put to the test. Then you never make those accomplishments. So I enjoyed it. I felt I was made for it. I make no apology saying it. It may sound egotistical, but that's the way it is. I was confronted with the challenges, met them, performed well, and I'll rest on those laurels.
We had Our Lady of Victory Academy High School here.
The Foxes. And this is going to be transformed into a center for developmentally disadvantaged people. This winter, the bids will go out for that building. To our left, the Evergreen Nursing Home. Here's a story to our right. This is one way we can go to it. This is a plant that closed down not long ago, losing 267 jobs. This was the main entrance to the Imperial Paper Mill. The other entrance, of course, off of Main Mill Street. But this story is not yet completed. We don't know what the final disposition. There is some warehousing happening right here by the company that took over. You can see steam emanating from it, which indicates that heat is being generated in that building. At one time, there was a lot of interest. It was almost sold. We had 5 different suitors for the building and manufacturing of paper products as their goal. And the company just backtracked from wanting to sell. Why, we don't know. But the viewers of this program may yet tell us why it happened that the company backtracked. You're calling that, Gordy?
Yeah, you know, I have no idea.
It was
I just
signed, almost signed, sealed, and delivered just a year ago.
Very, very strange happenstance.
And the company backed off. And this company pays a lot of taxes to keep this huge complex going and heated, but they must have a plan. You know, oftentimes free enterprise, because they pay the freight, has a well thought out plan. Let's hope that they have a well thought out plan.
A lot of people spent a lot of years here.
Yeah, there's a lot of life that happened here. In fact, there's a lot of life that happened just to our right, because this was the ford where the British came across. And I'm sure you've done a few shows about the Battle of Plattsburgh and Pike's Cantonment area. It's been decided by historians that this is where it happened, and this was a crossing point for the British in the Battle of Plattsburgh, trying to outflank us over there at Forts Brown, Moreau, and Scott. How's that, Gordy?
We got history.
We got
do
history.
we have history.
You want
And
history, my friends? We got history.
that history will unfold even more as we approach the anniversary of the Battle of Plattsburgh in the year 2014. I hope we're still around.
That's going to happen like tomorrow.
Yep.
That's how life goes by so quickly. As a kid, I said, you know, how old will I be when the new millennium comes? And the year 2000 happens. And, geez, that was yesterday. I still feel like a kid.
And the older you get, the faster time goes.
It goes by zip. So anyway, we're coming back out. This is the Fox Hill area of Plattsburgh.
Yeah, let's talk about the Crate Brothers as long as we're in Fox Hill.
Well, they operated a thriving grocery store, and they were quite What's the word I'm looking for when it comes to keeping money?
Thrifty.
Thrifty.
Yeah. Frugal.
Frugal. I mean, they operated a grocery store in frugality and thriftiness. They saved like $800,000. This is back in the 60s, but $800,000 was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money. Donating it to the city of Plattsburgh for a youth facility in their neighborhood. For not, because all it did is
Want to go to
Bill-
Bombardier?
yes, we'd like to go to Bombardier by taking a right-hand turn here, real quickly. And what we'll do is we'll head down Main Mill Street, take a left on Wall Street, and wrap right around. But the Crate brothers, what happened with their money is they built the Crate Center in the north end of town in the middle of nowhere. And you know, it's been a white elephant for the city of Plattsburgh for over 25 years. Through different administrations, different investments, and still yet to reach its full potential, whatever that potential may be.
Whatever that might be.
Hey, listen, it's a dog. It's a dog.
A lot of people have thought about it, spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money, and
Well,
that's what it is.
As we go down Main Mill Street, the reason why it was called Main Mill, it was not because it was the main street, but it was because of the Maine, as in the state of Maine, mill, over 100 years ago. And it finished out as the Imperial Mill, and it still is the Imperial Mill, owned by the successors to the Imperial Mill. The story, as we said before, yet to unfold. To our right is the Temple Beth Israel Cemetery. Again, a lot of great families in the city of Plattsburgh that are buried here and entombed here. As I reflect upon their names, I remember them well. Goldman, Merkel, Cohen. Amazing. And we'll take a right on Wall Street, and off of Wall Street are many of the newer industries and emerging industries of the city of Plattsburgh. Left here, and down, go to the crest of the hill. I can see the Bombardier sign right now. They're employing almost 650 people as we talk right now, assembling rail cars from Metro North, the city, the New York Transit Authority, Long Island Railroad, Baltimore, Disney World, and we can see right now the top of the building, which has expanded twice in the last few years. The parking lot is full of cars and workers. What a glorious sight for the North Country. Right down this road, as we see a Pepsi truck coming out. We must drink Pepsi.
The actual population of the city of Plattsburgh has not changed a great deal over the years.
No, it's hovered around 21,000 plus. 21,000 plus. To our left is RPAC Plastics. They manufacture containers and closures. They employ over 100 people. And as we take a U-ey around here, you can see a building that the future of Plattsburgh has been and is based upon. And it's a great thing to know that this building, this company, and this industry came to the city of Plattsburgh following the closure of Plattsburgh Air Force Base, bringing with it not just new jobs, but new hope. In fact, the next expansion will go into our public works yard and we'll have to move.
Yeah.
But I say, until we have to go, don't go, because it costs a lot of money to leave, and we may have a few years left where we can save some money. But that'll be a legacy for another mayor, another common council.
Isn't Bombardier connected with a large bus company that wanted to move on the Plattsburgh Air Force Base?
Well, actually, they never ended up purchasing Nova Bus. That purchase fell through, and I don't know what the final disposition is, but Bombardier owns plane manufacturing operations, boat manufacturing, snowmobile manufacturing. Of course, that's the genesis. The Sierra Armand Bombardier and out in the eastern townships of Quebec started a company that built vehicles that traveled over snow. Soon to be called Skidoos.
Yeah.
Aha! Taking left back in Wall Street, back through the center of town, heading back towards our downtown. There's still a lot left in the city to to look at. Regretfully, in a way, I have to go pick up my father at the airport. I won't have that much time to spend with you today, but I've enjoyed our talk so far, and I know that we're going to talk a little bit more on the way back to the center of town.
How do you view the coming of the new millennium? Everybody seems to have a different idea about what it means to them, and some people it's a tremendous impact and they're looking forward to something. And
well, it's all a mental attitude thing. To me, it's another year. I don't think it has any other significance than that. But if it spurs people on to reflect upon their life and to resolve to do better in the future, great. For me, I try to do that every day, and it's a challenge.
you know, it wasn't very long ago when we didn't have any clue what Y2K meant, and now it's a word you hear 200 times a day.
Yeah, maybe it will be part of our permanent lexicon. I don't know. But it's just another year. It's just another year. And frankly, it really isn't the change of millennium. That comes on the eve of 2001. But hey, like I said, it's an attitude thing, and those that have the attitude of reflection and resolve, God bless them.
And some people have made some money off it.
Well, that's the American way.
That's the American way.
And that free enterprise, that spirit of entrepreneurialism has made our country the greatest country in the world.
We have a few snow flurries in the air, which have been kind of few and far between.
Now there's
this
something I
Christmas
wonder
season.
about, if there's a permanent weather change or if this is a 100-year or 500-year cycle, who knows?
I do worry about it. I wonder and worry about it.
Well, I don't know if I worry about the weather. Frankly, I don't mind if it warms up here. But it does hurt the ski industry, and if you're between snow and no snow, you don't necessarily make money off it or enjoy the winter as much. So I'd rather have either lots of snow or no snow and warm weather, one or the other. Let's not be in between like we are today.
You know, as we look into the distance, you see church spires, and boy, that defines the history of a community, and certainly as landmarks, it defines the skyline, doesn't it, in any community?
St. John's Church, I don't know the years, but it's the first half of the 1800s when it was built. And then later on, the French splintered off and built St. Peter's. And that was the Irish church. The Irish went to St. John's and the French went to St. Pierre, St. Peter's.
The beautiful renovations that have been done in these churches recently,
Oh, they're fantastic.
including the new copper roof on St. Peter's.
And it wasn't so long ago. In fact, I can remember being told, say, what's your last name? Rabideau. Okay, you must go to St. Peter's. No, I faked them all out. I went to Our Lady of Victory. But it's funny. It's amazing how recent that kind of attitude is and was.
I got you on record going through that red light.
Yeah, you got it, huh?
That was yellow. I'm a witness.
We,
You know, Plattsburgh Foundry is a company that's been operating for 100 years, and it's just to our right. I don't know if we can catch a glimpse of it through the alley. Now, Gordy knows this alley. I don't know why.
you don't have to know everything.
Well, maybe
But this,
because of that.
A great history here, though. Great history in this end of town as well.
Yeah, the Foundry's been here over 100 years. And it's still employing people, still operating. May they operate many, many more years. Early industry.
The site of the city police station has changed over the years. When I first arrived, it was up at City Hall. The third floor auditorium was where the gym was located, and the policemen were working out up there when I first came down.
Yeah, that's not too long ago.
Really?
It's not long ago. It's another neighborhood called the Flats that we're going down into. The Flats. Little oxbow forming of the Saranac River. Neat little neighborhood. Up to our left is the police station that will swing around and see.
Another historic building right here on our right.
Oh, where the old Mason lumber yard was.
Exactly.
Now an apartment complex. I remember buying lumber there for my construction company. And then this is where I played my first JV football game. Saranac Central versus Plattsburgh High School. Can't remember who won.
This was the old field. It used to be a skating rink here in the winter time. Former Plattsburgh High School was located up on the hill. Now it's the Stafford Middle School.
And Now my son practices football here.
It's isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Things go around and come around.
They sure do. Yep, Stafford Middle School set for expansion in a year or two.
The original school
Yes, I
was
remember.
here, but there was one before that up on Oak Street called the Academy, and part of the public library is built around the old Academy.
Yeah, St. John's Church, the rectory.
We'll make a left here and head up Broad Street, because there's a lot of history here, including the history of expansion of the State University here, formerly the Normal School. Because when I first came here, there wasn't much on Ruger Street, Clyde.
Flanagan Farm.
You got it.
Joliker. Who else is up there? Reeves Farm. Things change. The farms get urbanized, suburbanized.
A lot of the buildings were removed to make way for expansion of the local Plattsburgh state, but a lot of the old homes survive here, and they've changed in their use. Some homes have become, for example, on the left-hand side here, a dental facility.
Well, it's interesting that Plattsburgh State is really integrated with the communities, right in a neighborhood or neighborhoods. A lot of the other state universities are not like that. They're set up on a hill or segregated from the community. I think it's kind of neat to be such an integral part of the campus. Literally have the campus part of the city neighborhood scene infrastructure. As I go by St. John's School, St. John's Academy, the original building there. Used to be the convent for all the nuns. Now part of the Northern New York Center. One of the first dormitories built, McDonough Hall, to our left. And then the admin building straight ahead, the Tower of Power, as it's sometimes called. But you can see the different architecture, and obviously the architecture of the newer buildings that we're looking at is part of the modern architecture of the 60s when this was built, courtesy of Nelson Rockefeller.
It's a nice view from the top of that administration building.
It's a great view. It's a great view. Harrington Hall Memorial Gym. I won 3 sectional wrestling championships in that gym, Gordy.
A lot of memories for you, and
Never lost one in that gymnasium.
It's amazing.
And my daughters won sectional champions in swimming in that building.
It's interesting what sparks memories, isn't it? Sometimes just driving around, you remember?
Oh, I know. I remember being so nervous going in there and that was where all the sectionals were held. It was the biggest gym in the area at the time. Of course, other facilities have been built since. But back in the early 70s, that was the place where it all happened. And now we have these other dormitory buildings that are gracing our skyline here.
To the right, the former Champlain Valley Hospital.
I got some stitches there.
Did you really?
Oh, my father rushed me down there. Who was the doctor? I think it was Kasperzak.
It could very well be. He's
think it
been
was
practicing
Dr.
around
Casper.
here for a long, long time.
I think so. I have to ask my dad when I pick him up if he can remember. And then the campus school right here, Sibley Hall.
Sibley Hall. How many people remember that campus
And
school?
they don't have the campus school anymore. Do
Nope,
they?
no,
Like
they do
used to,
not.
But it used to be literally an elementary school where students taught and learned how to teach.
It was very difficult to get your children into that school.
Oh yeah,
As
you
I
had to have some
recall.
pull.
Yeah.
Oh, not necessarily the democratic way. And then Plattsburgh High School here to our left, the newest one. Just underwent expansion.
Major expansion.
Nice school. I like the auditorium there. And then we're going to be going up the upper part of River Street here. At the crest of the hill to the left is the field house, which was built when the FISU games were here in Plattsburgh.
How well we remember.
What does FISU stand for?
I don't remember.
I don't know. Something about the University Games, Federation Internationale. I don't know what the S stood for.
It was a great time, anyway.
Sport University. It must have been in French. Let's think about this, or Latin. Who can remember? But 1976, I wrestled Dan Gable. Who was Dan Gable?
Oh my,
The
my.
greatest wrestler the world's ever seen. He was an Olympic gold medalist and captain of and coach of the wrestling team. But the Olympians trained in Plattsburgh before they went 60 miles north and took on the world in Montreal. There's a memory.
Boy.
Just on Ruger Street, look at all the memories we've had.
And as Clyde says, this was farming country when I first came here. As a matter of fact, in the 1940s, most of Ruger Street was a dirt road. Think about that, folks.
Oh, come on.
How 50 years has changed things. Upper Ruger Street was a dirt road. It wasn't paved until the 40s.
But literally, all the Olympians trained right here in Plattsburgh. And if you were going downtown, you would see all the big names of track and field and other sports. I can remember the biggest names there ever were in sports trained right here at this field house.
How many hockey games have I been to here? And how many
here.
basketball
I
games?
was here yesterday afternoon. Seton Catholic took on Plattsburgh or vice versa. High
3-3 tie, not bad,
They
huh?
were hustling. That was a spirited game. A little physical. But
And our local Plattsburgh State hockey team has done very well for itself over the years. And as we're broadcasting now, have an undefeated season going into the second half.
consistency. You're consistently in the championship contention.
Some very interesting members of the coaching staff over the years. The current coach, Bob Emery, has been here for a while.
Yeah.
He knows how to whip the troops up, doesn't he, huh?
He seems to draw out the best of them. Everybody has their own way of doing it.
Spent a little time rollerblading around these streets, watching cross-country matches, baseball games here.
And you know, it's only been in the last few years that rollerblading has been popular, become a sport. And who knows, 20 or 50 years from now, what variations of rollerblading there may be. People jog in snow flurries and 2 below zero. There's a jogger now.
It's now part of history.
Yeah. How many miles do you think you've jogged in your lifetime, Clyde?
Thousands and thousands.
In many venues, too, huh?
All over the world. I've jogged on the beaches of Hawaii, California, all the way through Florida, all the way through the country, from St. Louis to Wichita. I've jogged in Macedonia and Albania.
Macedonia, that was quite a trip, wasn't it?
Wow. Seems everywhere I went there was a revolution that started after I left.
You got to know Peter Clavel pretty well over there, didn't you?
Peter and I are great friends. In fact,
Nice family, too.
Great family. One of the greatest mayors of Burlington, and a good friend. In fact, our friendship has spawned a lot of great things for our region. One of them, the Triangle of Excellence. And hopefully...
Talk about that a little bit. I think that's a great
Triangle of
idea.
Excellence is a regional association between Burlington, Vermont, Plattsburgh, New York, and the Upper Richelieu Valleys, Saint Jean and Iberville. The mayors there and us have formed an association to promote our history, our culture, our business endeavors, and work together as a region to make good things happen. And I think there's a lot of promise in that association. Hopefully the future mayors of Plattsburgh will carry the ball when it comes to the Triangle of Excellence. I remember when Cogan Avenue was a brand new street. I remember when these houses were built up by Lee Parati. Built about 100 of them in this neighborhood alone. When we're coming up to it used to be like the backside on Route 3, Upper Cornelia Street.
How much property is still left to build on in the city of Plattsburgh? Not a lot, huh?
Not much. Not much. Just a little bit. Coming out here in the intersection, this used to be the outer reaches of commercialism not long ago.
Really
Now
was.
it's just-
There was Richard's store and Zabinski's store.
Yeah.
One of the buildings still remains.
Yeah, one of them. Yep, still there.
And but there wasn't much else up here. And this was a very narrow, rural, 2-lane highway.
Until you got the Radigan Motors up here, and on the left, Plattsburgh Plaza was built. Plattsburgh Plaza has enjoyed a renaissance of late.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
building to the right here, which has been so many things I can't recall.
Cindy's laundromat.
More than 10 or 12, yeah.
Yeah. Geez, there's a radio station to our right too.
Yeah, I seem to remember making that right-hand turn a few thousand times over the years.
But you know, it's the only privately owned broadcast medium in the city of Plattsburgh. And 50 some odd years later, it's still there. Thank God we still have something left to local broadcasting.
This business in the center between Broad and Cornelia Streets has changed hands many times.
Yep, Chuck Reset still owns it now. Before that, Radigan Motors.
To the left-hand side, talk about a legend.
Turner Mansion that was torn down for this.
And the old carriage house in the back.
I remember, I was told that mansion was haunted by my mother every time we drove by downtown. She called it Down Street. I don't know why she called it Down
I
Street.
seem to remember walking by there in the early 60s and seeing a little light burning up there, and then hearing the legend about Mr. Turner and how he would go to the local stores and buy appliances and take them home and take them all apart to see that they were built well. And if they were, then he'd order 10, and he would go and deliver things to poor people around the county and paint their homes.
Is that the truth?
I don't know. Those are stories I
It's a
heard.
darn good story. Let's make it the truth.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen of the year 2050, that is the truth.
And to the left, CVPH Medical Center, formerly Physicians
I
Hospital.
don't think, can we see part of the original building in there at all? Well, I think we can.
Yeah.
Touch. It's been built up all around it. It used to be a stately pillared building, courtesy of Miner.
And to the right, Hawkins Hall, which has a rich history of its own after the tremendous fire destroyed
Original building of Plattsburgh, the Vilas home, where I went.
it. On the left, which had a beautiful expansion done fairly recently.
Yeah. This is one of the main streets, Cornelia Street. It's a gracious street.
A lot of beautiful homes here.
Beekman and Beekman. Yeah. Boy, to our right, doesn't that snow look pretty glittering on the
Kind of
ground?
nice, yeah, kind of a rare
Picturesque.
sight this year.
So we head down, coming up on the French Quarter, Gordy.
Yes, we are.
Lafayette, Champlain, and Montcalm streets, where it used to be the French enclave. Still a lot
Look
of
at the
French
size
families
of
living
these
there.
dogs. Look at them.
Big dogs.
Ooh, baby.
Big dogs.
Many of the old
If you
houses.
can't run with the big dogs, stay on the porch.
Yeah, that's what they say. A lot of the big houses in the parts of Plattsburgh have turned into student housing.
Yeah, especially to our left, but more and more it's encroaching over to the French Quarter, where the French immigrants lived. All the families came here originally, and all went to church at St. Peter's. And you can see the newly coppered steeple.
Yeah, that's going to change a lot over the years. So people who view this program even 10 years from now will notice a big difference, because that was
My great-great-grandfather was married in this church,
really.
the real center of the community here.
And right after St. Peter's Church is another interesting building.
Newville Academy building, a high school for girls. And behind it, St. Peter's School. Now an apartment building. In fact, I helped renovate that building.
Did you really?
Yeah.
But Bob Carpenter
yeah.
and the school.
It was a well-built building. Still is.
It's a nice story connected with St. Peter's School over to the left over this Christmas season of 1999, where I worked as a victims advocate in the probation department, and we had a very poor family who wasn't going to have a Christmas until Mrs. Sue Bleeker's second grade class adopted that family.
Oh.
They each made squares for a quilt. She sewed it together and raffled it off and raised enough money to give a very nice Christmas to a very poor family.
Beautiful.
Fire station number 1.
Number 1. One of 2.
The next building, the former 911 system, was born here.
Well, it's still the center of communications, telephone communications. It's amazing it stayed here, but it's very important. So we head back on our loop.
On the right, the Clinton County Government Center. When they built it, they thought they'd have plenty of parking.
Designed by Jeremiah Oosterbein. His office used to be to our left. And you know something, even though it's a modern style, I like this building.
Yes.
I do. For something that it has character for a modern building.
I never dreamed that I would be going into that building and going up into the second floor to start a new career at age 60.
Well,
And it still marvels me every time I pull in there. These buildings on the left are historical buildings, mostly apartments now.
limestone facade here. This used to be a hotel and now a boarding room.
And I'll never forget getting up in the morning and listening to Sid Spiegel on the news saying the old Humpy is gone. The Smithweed Bridge is gone.
As we wrap around here to City Hall and Madonna Monument, I hope that these two don't change in the next millennium, because this is such a vital facet of our history. It deserves preservation.
Even Trinity Park over here has got some nice pieces of history connected with it.
Sure does,
The
and I
old
know that
farmers markets
you and Calvin are going to reflect on more of Plattsburgh's history. And I have to leave right now to pick up my father at the airport. And that red pickup truck right in front of us, I'm going to head out. You'll see the logo of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, of which I am a member and a journeyman wireman. And I'm going to head out and pick up my dad. I wish I could spend hours and hours with you reflecting on Plattsburgh's history and talking about the old stories, but I know that you have enough stories between you both to carry on the show. So
we got the war stories and we can do it. Clyde, thanks so
Thank you
much
so much
for your many years of service, and good luck in the future, and may 2000 be a real good one for you.
I'm sure it will, and I thank you.
Well, Gordy, we'll start our portion here without Clyde and looking at the old courthouse.
Yeah, 1889. It's got a lot of history, and much of it has been renovated, and there will be in the next few years, I don't know how many, but in the next few years there will be massive changes in how the government offices are laid out. Many will have to move. I mean, the county buildings, the numbers of people have grown tremendously. And everything from the probation department to the Clinton County Health Department to the Department of Social Services have all outgrown their quarters, so there'll be some massive changes. There is the new mayor,
Oh, yeah, there he is.
Dan
That's the
Stewart,
new
just
mayor.
walking out of City Hall, so you're in essence seeing the changing of the guard here today.
That's a
Although
nice.
we're recording this a few days before January 3rd, when the official inauguration will be taking
out
place.
Awfully brave. In my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, this used to be the Smithweed Bridge. Probably must still be the Smithweed Bridge, I imagine.
Probably is called, as we called it, Old Humpy. It was a very unique old bridge that the railroad tore down. There's the old walking bridge. To the left, the former Legion.
Post 20.
Post 20 Legion. There was a tremendous fire. And for a long time, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that that building would be restored. But it was.
No.
And there's now law offices, Stafford and others.
And
A lot of
Ronald-
beautiful historic homes here.
We ought to at least mention who Ronald Stafford is. Ronald
Ron
B.
Stafford.
Our state senator.
Longtime senator for the North Country, for whom that Stafford Ice Arena is named, that we
And
viewed
Stafford
a short
Middle
time
School
ago.
is named.
Stafford Middle School. This is perhaps more people know the history of Plattsburgh and about the Battle of Plattsburgh in connection with this area, which was formerly the British headquarters. I'm going to pull to the right a little bit so that people can look around. The Lord House, for a long time, really the only the only home that people could go through on a very historic point of land, because Calvin is looking at one of the monuments, the Champlain Monument, but out in this bay is where the actual Battle of Plattsburgh occurred, within view. And Calvin and I, a short time ago in real time, got very chilly in a trip with Frank Pabst, as we had a number of local historians and others from around the country who came here to recreate the Battle of Plattsburgh in a gym on the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base. That was quite a weekend, as we did almost 6 hours of video to commemorate it. This is also part of the river walk, and as you see around the monument there are bricks. Each one of those bricks is inscribed. For $40 or so you can buy one of the smaller bricks and have it installed in the springtime, and I must say that I've had people tell me they gave those bricks as Christmas presents in 1999. A lot of old and some newer homes here on Cumberland Avenue. Historic area which ultimately will show you the Lodge of Elks, the Elks Club, and many of Plattsburgh's prominent citizens live here on Cumberland Avenue and have for some time. Nice place to live and nice place to visit with its proximity so close to Lake Champlain. This is Lodge 621, the Elks Club. Another building said to be haunted, although I don't have any direct knowledge of that. Interesting mailbox there that we just passed.
A dolphin or
Yeah.
porpoise.
We're going to swing around the loop and come out near one of the most historic buildings that is now connected with Georgia Pacific. That was originally part of the Lozier Boat and Auto Works in the early part of this century. And on the right hand side, well, first of all we can talk about Wilcox Dock. It's been a bone of contention. We should have driven down there when Clyde was in the car because he's talked so much about it getting open to the public over the years. We don't know quite what the future will be there. There were huge storage tanks at one point here, and not only on this end of town but on the south end of town, huge oil storage tanks that were really dangerous when fires broke out. It was kind of scary at a few times. Now there's a great deal of work being done to reclaim the Lake Champlain from the effluents that were in the lake, formerly known as the mud flats here, and this is a major multi-million-dollar project here. You can see Cumberland Bay Wilcox Dock sludge bed site, no trespassing. There's still controversy over how serious the problem was and how many PCBs there were and just what they would do to you. But this is that building in front of us is the part of the old Lozier Works that I mentioned to you a few minutes ago. I can remember in the past seeing huge piles of logs over to the right that people would come and sell their wood, their pulp, to the plants, but those piles of logs don't exist here anymore. This is an ancient building. I have no idea when it was first constructed. One of these days maybe we can bring some of the local historians with us. Which way do you want to go, Cal?
We'll head out down Route 9.
Okay.
We won't be constricted to the city limits now because we no longer have the mayor with us. We can go out up to probably as far as the North Country Shopping Center and then come around back. We'd like this to be a tour of the greater Plattsburgh area, which will include part of the city of Plattsburgh. Of course, Mayor Rabideau, one of his final big events was honoring Georgia Pacific a couple months ago. We were pleased to be there.
Actually a part of the scene here in Plattsburgh under one name or another for a long time, but as Georgia Pacific for well over 3 decades. The development here north of Plattsburgh deserves mention. because at one point in time, urban renewal was heading northbound, and it was scheduled. Everything that happened on Route 3 west of Plattsburgh was predicted to happen this way. For one reason or another, it didn't. And now you have some commercial growth this
all
way.
motels through here.
Yep.
My uncle ran the Bayside Motel. My uncle and aunt
Really?
ran the Bayside Motel, the Funefs, and there's a whole bunch of motels through here. And right over here, there was a great big orange ball.
Called the Orange Julep, and I have so many fond memories, not the least of which, that's the place where I first met one of the tallest policemen I've ever seen in my life. Emil Pyan, Bud Pyan, who was he ran out of the Orange Julep and put a blanket over the motor in somebody's car who was on fire. And I said, "Who is that masked rider?" And I realized it was Bud Pyan, who was almost bigger than the motorcycle.
He was intimidating. Intimidating figure. I got a ticket from
Oh, did you?
Officer Pine. at
Didn't
one
argue
point.
back a bit, did you?
No, just glad to be on my way.
Current restaurant, windows on the bay, very popular.
I
Eye care for the Adirondacks, tremendous
doing
growth here.
eye surgery there. My brother Sam will be operated on there for cataracts within the next couple of weeks.
Dr. Dolan very much involved in the Mayor's Cup and sailboat racing in the area.
We'll be coming back this way, so we'll look on the left side on our way back. We'll just keep
We're
looking out.
crossing over Escamotion Creek, which is also a big part of the Plattsburgh area history. There was a good friend of mine in much of the North Country, Mike Finnegan, went to school at Commotion Creek, and the Escamotion Creek, and the schoolhouse was still here. It was one of the voting places when I first moved to town.
I think one of the factors, if we can be frank, why the expansion never came out to the north side as it was expected was the fact that it stunk through this part of the area.
Mud
right
flats
here.
had a lot to do with it. They certainly did.
It smelled terribly through here years ago, 25 years ago.
We're approaching a building that for most of its existence was known as the Pink Elephant on the left-hand side.
Oh yeah, we'll get that on the way back.
And we'll
be
get it
coming
on the way back. The North Country Chamber of Commerce located there. WPTZ, the television station, located off the old Moffett Road to the left.
Years from now, I would expect that we're going to see some growth in this swampy wooded area that we have here that's still undeveloped.
The Karen Flurry bike path is worth mentioning here. A number of years ago, the young daughter of
Let's swing by the crate.
the Flurries was killed in this area by a drunken driver, and the Flurries are still very, very prominent in this area as we approach the new millennium and trying to help people to refrain from drinking and driving. And this is the Crate Center that Clyde Rabideau mentioned a few minutes ago. So many people and so much money so much effort has gone into making this building do something for the city, and for the most part, everything has pretty much failed. With a few notable exceptions, the entrance to the Plattsburgh Municipal Beach. I should say the latest enterprise inside the Crate Center is a skate park where kids can ride their bicycles and rollerblades and perform.
And skateboards.
And now we're approaching the state beach and campsites. Helen Iannelli began the sand sculpture contest every year, sponsored by the Plattsburgh Press Republican. And mostly the only time I ever go in here now is to either judge or view the sand sculpture behind the buildings here. But I have to tell you that back in the 1960s and early 70s, we wouldn't be traveling as leisurely down this road in the middle of the summer, would we, Calvin?
It was very cramped, wall to wall. Well, you take from the border all the way down here was wall to wall traffic, particularly before the Northway came in. Route 9 was just unbelievable to people of our generation now to look back and try to explain to the youngsters how crowded Route 9 was.
You're looking at the state campsites, still very popular by our Canadian friends and many local people who come here to camp because of its proximity to Lake Champlain. And we still do have a beautiful beach here. One of the, if not the longest freshwater beach, close to the longest freshwater beach in the nation. You want to drive around Cumberland Head, or you think we ought to swing back? Okay.
For time's sake, I think we ought to
All right.
restrict it to...
Cumberland Head, in the olden days, had 2 roads which ran around Cumberland Head. On the north side and the south side. Went around in a loop and would come back, and it was great for joggers and wonderful for the Hagers who had a farm out there, the most historic farm. And not the least of which reasons is the fact that the ferry was out at the end of Cumberland Head. Many people would make that ride. The roads were rebuilt. They still talking about building a road right down the middle of Cumberland Head.
And there's people who I have to kind of agree with. I think maybe they don't need a quicker road.
Yeah. And then there's talk about a rooftop highway, which I remember first came way back in the old Bob McHugh days. Remember, they talked about a rooftop highway, and now that conversation is being revived.
Yeah, McEwen, when McEwen was a congressman many years ago, they were talking about that. Now with McHugh, his name is very similar to McEwen.
Oh yeah, McEwen and McHugh, you got it.
They're still talking about it. That would tie in north-south traffic, the east-west traffic, much like the north-south traffic is tied in by the Northway.
Again, a reminder to our viewers of Our Little Corner that this program is being recorded on December 28, 1999. It's not altogether a common thing to be driving this road without seeing at least 6 or 8 or 10 or 20 inches of snow on either side of the highway.
This time of the year.
This time of the year.
Yeah. And we should point out the reason for this. We really, people might be joining us late. The purpose of this is just to record what the greater Plattsburgh area looked like at the end of the decade, the end of the century, and the end of the millennium. And millennium is a word that we seldom, if ever, heard until the last year or two, as we got closer to the end of the 20th century. As you said earlier, Y2K became prominent, and I think, as Clyde mentioned, the actual end of the millennium, the second millennium, is actually at the end of the year 2000, not the year of the end 1999. But as we approach the year 2000, we've had so much controversy over computers and how they're going to react to turning to the year 2000 as opposed to the 19s, as whether they're going to be reset at 0 and become 1900 or the year 2000. That has sparked any further discussion. It just eliminated any further discussion as far as when the millennium is going to end. Everybody just now considers 2000 to be the millennium, even though it's not officially.
On the left, you see the North Country Shopping Center, which, when it was built, was going to revolutionize the shopping experience in the North Country, and as
it did for a while too.
It was very busy. We even had an outdoor summer water games fun park here for a long time.
Frank Akey?
And Frank Akey, who owned all this property and originally developed it. We've seen many stores come and go here, and it is rather sad to come back here at the end of 1999 and see the remnants of what once was such a thriving shopping center.
Even if we'd come here 10 years ago, most of these stores were filled 10 years ago.
Sure.
Now it's just Finney's and the Farm and Family and a couple others. Finney's are a holdout because they don't need the through-the-door traffic as much because they sell a lot of imprinted items and so on. But Farm and Family Center is just kind of taken over a whole bunch of vacant stores.
And we had the old A&P was up in this end, and we have the only remaining bowling alley in this immediate vicinity,
Yeah.
North Bowl Lanes.
Yeah, there was Plattsburgh Lanes, the closing of the base. Plattsburgh Lanes closed. There was a bowling alley on the base. Well, now you'd have to go to Rouse's Point to
Beaumont.
Beaumont, and some of the smaller ones. I know there's from the high school league. I know there's a small alley in Mariah that they bowl at. There's one in the Sable area.
The Elks Club has a bowling alley downstairs. And down on Durkee Street, you remember going on Durkee Street with Clyde Rabideau this morning? And
Oh yeah.
there was Nash Bowling Alley there many, many years ago. The most popular of all the original bowling facilities here in Plattsburgh. That's where a lot of the old timers first rolled their first ball.
And I'm not sure if it's just a coincidence, Gordy, but it seemed that bowling popularity went down just about the time as they started to come down harder on driving under the influence. And hard for me to believe that a lot of those bowlers were there just to tip a few, but
Well, you know,
possible.
without revealing too many gaudy little secrets from the old days, I used to bowl regularly at the Elks Club, and I must confess that before the driving while intoxicated laws were nearly as stiff as they are now, I drove from the Elks Club with a couple under my belt, and thank the good Lord for being with all of us back in those days to get through it without getting killed or killing somebody. And we've now taken our little soapbox as we're passing along the Karen Fleury bike path once again to our left-hand side and urging people to be very careful in driving while intoxicated.
be smarter than we were, right?
They were a lot smarter than we were, hopefully. Many of those were the days before seat belts, before a lot of things, you know.
There's that pink elephant you talked about.
Yes.
That was a Frank Harvey construction too, I recall, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and there's the new Chamber of Commerce
Chamber
building.
of Commerce, we were here for the ribbon cutting, Calvin.
Yeah.
They do a lot for existing businesses and young people, would-be entrepreneurs.
It's incredible how in the past decade the Chamber has become such a vital part of the community.
Well, Gary Douglas is a big part of that. You know, we can remember when the JCs were here, and the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and the downtown merchants, but now it's just barely short of a global enterprise because they encompass so much of what businesses do throughout the entire North Country. And Gary Douglas is a very bright man and a driving force with a lot of other wonderful people who work there in their board and work there in the building.
And membership is right around the 1,300 mark right now, and that's an incredible number at this stage. It has to have grown at least 50% in the last 5-6 years, membership in the Chamber.
You have a pretty vital chamber up in the northern tier too, don't you, Cal?
They've been kind of quiet at this stage. They didn't, to my knowledge, they didn't have their Citizen of the Year dinner this past fall. They're going through some changes there. They've had some vital members that have dropped out, and I expect they'll be back and active before too long. Going by the old orange julep. It's too bad we don't have a picture to put up on the camera right now of that place.
Yeah, just think of a huge orange globe. There was one located north of the border, and this one, which was moved here, I don't know what year, but it's fond memories for many people who may be viewing this program now. One of the public services connected with Georgia Pacific is a large sign which we're approaching, where you see the signage for Route 87 and Route 22. And most times during the year, if there's a significant event, they're promoting it here or congratulating some group or some individual.
You know,
It's Happy Holidays.
It's such a simple thing, but it's been received so well by the community. and it's had an impact. You know, it just, I'm sure when they started doing it, they didn't realize the impact it would have.
And I also remember not very long ago when they decided to take the huge smokestack down here at Georgia Pacific. And that was a landmark for a long, long time. And when they removed it, there was something missing from this end of town.
Yeah, an eyesore.
Yeah, an eyesore. That too.
But it was part of the horizon.
To the right, the cogeneration plant that we talked so much about, and we attended many of the ceremonies when that opened up. Boynton Avenue.
Nice to see that clear steam as opposed to black smoke
that right.
coming out.
Boynton Avenue has changed considerably over the years. There's Lozier Place to the left, named after the Lozier Company. Many things have changed here since the advent of the Adirondack Northway. We're just passing the entrance. But not too far here up on the right was one of the original locations for the Clinton County Fairgrounds. And radio station WMFF had its first transmitters right here on Boynton Avenue on the north end of Plattsburgh. This is the main route, Route 22, which goes right straight through town from north to south. A very historic home for Charles Platt on the right-hand side, the original Platt homestead, built way back in the early part of the 19th century. On the left-hand side, I've spent a lot of time here at ball games, and the old Bailey Avenue ballpark was here, which underwent some massive changes. When it was torn down, I was here with tape recorders looking for old coins under the bleachers. But it's significant for me because back in the in the mid-1950s, on the 4th of July, when boxing was really big here in Clinton County, I boxed my own brother, who for the sake of controversy called himself Jim Small rather than Jim Little that day. Right there on the 4th of July in a ring right at Bailey Avenue Ballpark. And we beat the bejeepers out of each other. It was supposed to end up a draw because it was going to be pre-planned. But the minute we threw a punch,
it became a fight.
It became a fight, and it did still end up a draw. We could barely remove ourselves from the ring.
The fix was in, but it didn't end up that way.
Yeah, it didn't end up that way.
And you know, we went by so quickly there. There was Murnane's building on the left just before we got to the ballpark, and you had the Knights of Columbus and the VFW.
VFW, Halsey's Corners here. Here, Captain Leonard Light. Artillery and infantry and militia under Major Wool briefly but stubbornly resisted the heroic advance of the British. And another significant reason for us to come up this street, because on the left-hand side in the 1960s, kind of an amazing place was built for the kids in Plattsburgh, and it was called Rollerland. And we had a lot of good twist concerts and a lot of rock and roll concerts at Rollerland. And then a tragic fire in the middle of the night burned it down, I should say. And then it was replaced with a Union Hall and another restaurant. And now, folks, as you can easily see, nothing left but the memories.
Fire destroyed it just several years ago, right?
Yep.
Wasn't that long ago. I think within the last decade, probably.
And a man named Bushy, who lived on this street, was a real wheeler dealer, and Ray Bushy was the one who booked all those rock and roll stars into this area in the 1960s. And those people who are grown up now should look back in favor on what Ray did, because we had sometimes one or two major rock and roll shows here every week for a while. And the big stars of the day would stop here in Plattsburgh on their way to shows in Montreal, and they would start out being interviewed by me on the radio and others who worked there, and then would do their show, tuning up for their big shows in Montreal, and it was very well accepted.
You and Ben Everest was very much involved too.
Ben
wasn't
Everest, tremendously involved in those days, yep.
The late Ben Everest. And there are a lot of good, real good local bands and rock and roll bands.
Oh my goodness. Local talent. People who are gone and moved from the area were involved in bands, and some people who are businessmen now in this area were rock and roll stars back in the 1960s and 70s. This was one of Clyde Rabideau's original checkout stores. As a matter of fact, the last one after he sold them all out, and then sold this one, and it's the home of Claire and Carl's.
Yes, I didn't mention he had a series. He must have had a dozen or so checkout convenience stores.
Convenience stores.
Not just in the city, but throughout the North Country. And I wonder how much money he made when he sold those out, Gordy. We should have asked him while we had him in the car.
Should have pinned them down, shouldn't we, huh?
Yeah. Let's go on up to the...
Heading on Boynton Avenue, which turns into the Tom Miller Road, and then the Tom Miller Road extension. Tom Miller, a famous historical personage. On the right-hand side, a beautiful old stone building. I don't know its history, but I've been in it several times, and it is a classic. It's very old with very thick stone walls. On the left-hand side, you'll see offices for the United Way. Mike Mannix, who worked with me in the radio business for many years, as did his father before him, the current CEO. Also on the left, Mountain Lake Public Television, Channel 57, and a street called Sesame Street, because of public television's connection with that very popular program so many years.
Let's go all the way out to O'Brien's Corners, because even though it's on the outskirts of the greater Plattsburgh area, I think it's just the O'Briens are now developing the Skyway shopping center that we zipped by when we were up by the air base.
Some very resourceful brothers who decided to take a chance and built what turns out to be a very successful strip mall here. On the right-hand side, one of the oldest lumber supply businesses in the area, and one that's enjoyed tremendous success. On the left, one of the main entrances to Champlain Center North. As you know, the malls were separated into two parts. The original Pyramid Mall is now called the Old Mall, and this one is called the New Mall. The Old Mall is, theoretically at least, undergoing a major metamorphosis. I don't know if it'll be finished in our lifetime or not, but perhaps by the time some of you view this, it will be.
Well, the Pyramid Corporation came in here in the early 70s. That kind of clinched it for the western part of the city of Plattsburgh, Cornelia Street, to become the area. I mean, it was already developing up there in Route 3, Cornelia Street, but that kind of clinched it when they built that mall back in the early 1970s.
To the left, maybe I can pull ahead far enough for you to see.
We can come back on this. We'll come back and go down Smithfield.
Water tower over there, and I remember over there when they dedicated that water tower. That was a significant news event back in those days. And also to the left on the west side of this roadway, called Smithfield Boulevard, is a large food store, Hannaford Brothers Food Store, but part of another mall that's located there has now become one of the remote locations for the CVPH Medical Center, and there are a number of new off-campus facilities there, not the least of which is the newly opened ambulatory service.
And Gordy Little's buried right there.
Well, my name is in there, and maybe by the time you see this, I will be. Who knows?
Yes. Well, I'm sure there will be people watching this in the future that, 100 years from now when you're gone, Gordy. That's why we're doing this. 50, 100, 200 years from now, people will know what our towns look like.
Yep. On the right, the Zeffie Newell Farm, one of the most colorful husband and wife teams I have ever met in my life. After Zeffie and his wife died, we found boxes and boxes of papers to find out that they had followed every moment of my life since the moment I came to Plattsburgh. When I was divorced, how many children I had, when I married Kay, and what the names of all of our children were. And the same is true of everyone who worked at Wiry at that time. And they were contest players, and they did everything they could to win the contests. Very interesting people. On the right, the Homestead restaurant, very popular spot. The Tom Miller Road, or as the old-timers call it, the Miller Road, has been in existence way back into antiquity. It was scarcely wider than a cow path when I first came here, and I must say, when the wind gets whipping and the snow starts snowing, this is one of the most treacherous stretches of highway in Clinton County. It's amazing. We're approaching an infamous intersection. The intersection of the Tom Miller Road and the Military Turnpike known as Route 190. I would hesitate to mention how many fatal and serious personal injury accidents have occurred at this intersection just since I've lived here. Ron's Corner Restaurant on the left-hand side, and this is the O'Brien Plaza that Calvin mentioned a few minutes ago.
And wasn't that long ago, there was absolutely nothing here.
As a matter of fact, that was also a swamp. They had to do a lot of filling in there.
And those same O'Briens that put that up are now developing the Skyway Shopping Center, and overnight they've turned that Skyway Shopping Center around, and it's
you can see the mountains in the distance. At the end of the Tom Miller Road extension, which we're on now, are the town of Plattsburgh offices, where Sir Arthur Lefebvre held fort for such a long, long time, and where Andy Abdullah is now the town supervisor for what has turned into a rather prosperous town, the town of Plattsburgh, compared to its neighbor, its less opulent neighbor, the town of Schuyler Falls, in which I live. The marcation point is the Green Bridge. It's called the Green Bridge, a green metal bridge which crosses over the Saranac in the middle of the hamlet of Morrisonville, which separates the two towns.
well, there's no question that the shopping industry is what brought prosperity to the town of Plattsburgh.
There's no question about it.
Malls, stores.
It was the right thing at the right time when Canadian traffic was so heavy here, and Plattsburgh was a mecca for shoppers from all over the North Country. It's interesting to note the difference in the rate of development and the style of development between Burlington and Plattsburgh. Clyde Rabideau mentioned the Triangle of Excellence and his close association with Peter Clavel. Those people who travel to Burlington notice a whole different kind of stores, a whole different kind of atmosphere in Vermont and Burlington than there is in Plattsburgh. And there are a lot of reasons which are far beyond the scope of this program. Heritage Heights to the right, major housing development which has sprung up over the last few years.
And you mentioned Schuyler Falls, and of course Schuyler Falls in today's news is very much
so
in the
because
news.
of a proposed expansion of the landfill. It's been controversial since the first time it was begun there. That's a whole different discussion involving where did you take your garbage when you grew up? Did you have your own private dump out in the woods behind your back 40? Did you go up to Katyville and up the road, or did you go up to Woods Mills? Or then the landfill problem as waste products became such a big concern, things were consolidated, and now we have the landfill located in the town of Schuyler Falls on the Sand Road, and there's a large faction of people who didn't want it there in the first place, don't want it there now, and certainly don't want to see it expand.
Well, they're talking of going from 100 acres to 170 acres. There's already a small mountain there of landfill, and years from now they might be skiing off that landfill mountain.
Yeah, who knows? With a gas mask on, maybe, right?
Asbestos suits on.
We could take a little turn over here around Smithfield Boulevard to give you an idea what the Champlain Center North Mall looks like in 1999 as it comes to a close, and the Hannaford Brothers food store on the right, including that.
Why don't we just circle right around them all? We'll just go into the parking lot and drive right around
Let's do that.
It's certainly a big part of our community at this point in time. There's the CVPH ambulatory service area that we already talked about behind those trees.
The women's imaging center located over there.
Hannaford Brothers Food. It used to be Sun Foods when it first located here.
Correct. We didn't show you the theaters in downtown Plattsburgh, but Strand Theater, which is the oldest theater still existing, operates in Plattsburgh and has many pleasant memories for me, and I'm sure for Calvin.
Let's go that way, because they'll shoot out my side window here.
And because when I first went to the Strand Theater, there were great Saturday shows. There was a large pipe organ there, and it was really exciting. And the late Ben Everest was very much a part of some of those shows back in the 60s as well. And then it was revived and revitalized. And there were a couple other theaters in downtown Plattsburgh, including a Champlain Theater at one time. It was built back around 1935. And then for a lot of the Plattsburgh area history, it was outdoor movies. We've talked a lot about them up in your neck of the woods, Calvin, and there was a Plattsburgh drive-in right here on Route 3, as a matter of fact. Stardust, the Super 87.
Yeah, there's 3 right in the Plattsburgh area.
The Border Drive-In, the Northway Drive-In.
2 in the Champlain area.
But this North Mall, as we call it, Champlain Center North, has been quite successful. Stores come and go. There are always a certain number of anchor stores. Food court is over to the right at that entrance, and the Hoyt Cinemas complex is there.
But within the last year, several Steinbach's is one that closed here.
Service merchandise down there on your right.
Hills became Ames. So some major stores in this shopping center have closed within the last year as the shopping center evolves.
Yeah, we don't know what the future is going to be. We're glad to see that the Center City and downtown Plattsburgh, the actual business section, is looking so good these days, and they're attracting businesses.
And Old Navy, that's a sign you would have seen a couple of years back.
Not at all, but a very popular recent store addition to Champlain Center North. All a very integral part of the tremendous growth in Plattsburgh's West End and outside the city limits as we are now. Motel chains. Now talk about a transformation. You look to the left here. You remember the orange roof? You remember the colors connected with Howard Johnson's? There were 2 Howard Johnsons in Plattsburgh for a long time, and this one survived with Bob Smith Jr. and a conglomerate called the Nine Platt organization. They changed the Howard Johnson's theme and now become Best Western. And the restaurant is named after his daughter, Lindsay.
There's Sears.
Toys R Us, into a major controversy on the internet over the Christmas season, Calvin.
They didn't deliver.
They couldn't deliver. They had such an influx of orders that they weren't ready for. They weren't ready for the internet. So now they're forced to go back and give all those people a $100 gift certificate and forever bear the brunt of their first year on the internet. JCPenney, one of the large anchor stores here at Champlain Center North. There are a number of entrances to this mall, as there are at most malls, to make it convenient. Huge parking areas, so that even during the Christmas season you didn't have to walk more than a half a mile to get where you were going.
And as was mentioned at the start of this tape, it is brisk today.
It's cool. It's nice and cozy inside the car. As you can hear by Calvin's voice and the remnants of my voice, it's been not a very good season for flu and colds.
Ever since we did that Battle of Plattsburgh recreation, Gordy and I have been battling colds and flu.
And everybody you talked to, including my poor wife, who got pneumonia out of it, and the whole 9 yards. I'll tell you, it's been unbelievable. There are, besides the O'Brien Plaza, there are a number of strip malls that have sprung up over the years, and there's another one down there on the right-hand side as we're once again approaching Smithfield Boulevard. And it's been quite successful, probably because of its proximity to the mall. You want to go back downtown to Route 3?
We'll go down Route 3.
Okay. You can get a better view of the CVPH Health Plaza across the road. Calvin and I have spent a lot of time touring not only the CVPH Medical Center, but looking at their expansions here and other places off campus as they become force to reckon with in terms of regional medical centers.
In fact, at this stage, they're getting business or patients out of Canada on a regular basis.
Especially at the Oncology Center and others, because of the nature of health care in Canada and here across the border.
And as we've seen, Gordy, healthcare is changing, and CVPH is moving forward, and they're kind of bringing along with them the hospitals and the medical centers in the outlying area too.
Oh, they certainly have.
The Alcide Hospital's made great changes.
Now it's the Alcide Medical Center.
Yeah.
Saranac Lake, Adirondack Medical Center at Saranac Lake is undergoing a major expansion. You know why. They have to keep up.
That's right.
These are the strip malls we talked about before. You see the major change in what was formerly the Howard Johnsons. It's still hard for me to get used to the change in colors.
And of course,
Banking in the North Country has changed considerably over the years. You never know what
your bank's going to be called
tomorrow. You never
tomorrow.
know what bank is. Oh, boy. And there's the Champlain Center South, the original Pyramid Mall that we mentioned, undergoing great changes. What was formerly the Montgomery Ward's building, where that giant piece of moving equipment or building equipment, construction equipment is located, has just been lopped off that end.
And that's within the last year that closed.
Absolutely. Kmart is still here as one of the major stores, however.
Of course, Kmart, back when you and I were youngsters, was known as Kresge's.
Yeah.
And there was a Kresge's downtown Plattsburgh. Montgomery Ward's was downtown Plattsburgh. Woolworths, and it was sad for me not that I spent a lot of time shopping in Montgomery Wards, but Montgomery Wards had always been there since I was a child and before that, and then it was gone a year ago. It was always part of the community.
You have to picture this 30 years ago when none of this expansion was here on the west end of Plattsburgh.
No, you had that drive-in theater just about in this area here.
Up on the right-hand side now,
Route 3 drive-in.
an upscale restaurant called Anthony's is here. The treatment plant is on the left-hand side. That's been here for a long, long time. UPS parcel service located to the right. What was formerly Grossman's for many, many years is now called Ward Lumber, another North Country business that chose to expand from the high peaks down here. Ponderosa, a restaurant that was started some years ago by Frank Akey's son, Pat Akey, who still owns it. Mini Putt, which he built, along with go-kart racing in the back. North End Repair.
Tom Wyan.
Tom Wyatt has been here for a long time. Car washes, Praise Farmers Market on the left-hand side.
We'll get them on the way back.
And now you are approaching the industrial park.
We'll get that on the way back.
Okay.
We'll just show what's on the right here, because who knows what's going to be here, even though there's nothing here now. Our whole purpose is to show what it looked like in 1999. There's no telling what will be here 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now.
A lot of this was swampland when I first moved here, that's for sure.
Because it would certainly be a different picture if we were doing this in 1949 as opposed to 1999.
Not to mention that the heater probably wouldn't work this good.
We would have had one of those things on the front of the car here, one of those clamp-on heaters.
A little fan with rubber blades over in the corner. This is a very historic area. The scene of the sunrise back there, and that bank is changed from a restaurant into a bank. Clinton County Highway Department is located here on the right-hand side, and the Clinton County Airport on the left-hand side. And there's been some discussion as to whether to move that airport out to the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base. And although I firmly believe that there will be a presence, an air presence out there, I don't think the Clinton County Airport will ever move there, but that's only an opinion.
This one by the former Golden Buffet, and I was very sad when that closed, Jimmy Woo, and they had a nice restaurant there, and there was another restaurant, Chinese restaurant in the area that,
right here,
that we won't mention the name of it, but it had a little bit of cockroach problems, and we'll just turn around here, Gordy, and once that place closed, Jimmy Woo's business went downhill too. People just, all they knew was there was a restaurant up on Route 3 that had problems, and his business declined, and he had to close about 2-3 years ago, and the building is still vacant. But it was a fine place to go at a reasonable price.
we're turning around at the intersection of Route 3 and Route 22B. Had we stayed on Route 3, we would have borne to the right, taken the right fork, and would head up through West Plattsburgh and Katyville. We could have taken Route 3 all the way to Bloomingdale and Saranac Lake. Route 22B, on the other hand, is the left fork, which goes down into that community of Morrisonville and continues on as Beckwith Street and then Route 22B again and takes you right down to Peru. We're heading back east toward the city of Plattsburgh.
This side of the picture, I'm sure the viewers are very much aware of it. It's been tough because the sun is quite bright today, and when the sun hits the camera or the window, it kind of washes a lot of the picture out. So anything we've shown out of this portion here, the southern view, has probably been some problems viewing it. But
CV Tech over here on the right, formerly known as BOCES, Champlain Valley Educational Services.
an important and I feel underappreciated part of the educational opportunities for our youth.
A couple of new larger chains moving into the area. Kinney Drugs here on the right-hand side, and Eckert Drugs farther towards town. Just past that.
You wonder how many of these homes will still be here in a few years. There's very few left. Very few private dwellings. There's TC Sports, another Tom Wyans enterprise.
We are approaching the Air Industrial Park.
Rental store, rent-a-wreck. Yes, this the Area Development Corporation has certainly spurred development throughout the county.
Large number of Canadian visitors come down here, like the area, like the tax incentives they can get, and build their buildings here, and that's changing all the time. But a lot of major commerce happening right out of that Air Industrial Park. Price of gasoline, super, $1.65. I can remember when gasoline went to 40 cents a gallon, and I screamed bloody murder. I can remember when I could buy 5 gallons for $1. You know how old I am. On the right-hand side, for many years known as Safety Steering, that facility there on the right-hand side.
Smiling Charlie, don't do the laugh for us, though.
No, I won't laugh.
There's your water tower.
And that's Hammond Lane, the home of Champlain Valley Electric Supply, and now a lot of doctors' offices and buildings. This building on the right has changed many times. One of a tremendous influx of motels on the right-hand side, the Days Inn. It's an entrance to the Adirondack Northway, the original entrance. There has been major change in the overpass here on Route 3 in the last few months of 1999, and there were some traffic snags here for quite a while I got it finished. But they did expand it, widen the road, and put sidewalks through underneath. Those people who traveled or went to school or lived here in Plattsburgh many years ago realized that that overpass has undergone a lot of changes. It was quite a stir when the Pyramid Corporation decided to bring this mall in town. And what changes since then, my friends?
Yep, I remember first hearing a little bit about it from the city engineer at that point, Bill Pierce, who was here in town, and had no idea what would evolve, and it just really changed the city. But if it didn't happen, it would have happened. Something that had to happen, Gordy.
Yeah, it was time.
If Pyramid didn't do it, somebody else would have.
Somebody else would have, and that's for sure. We still have to take a ferry to get across Lake Champlain from Plattsburgh, unless you want to drive to the Veterans Memorial Bridge in Rouse's Point.
Or go to Crown Point.
Or go to Crown Point to the south. And there are still people who say, I wish they'd have a bridge. The natural barrier of Lake Champlain has been quite a barrier. We can take a little swing into another one of the relatively new malls called Consumer Square. And anytime you hear the word Walmart as it applies to building a new store in an area, you also hear a group of people who say, we don't want them.
Go that way. We just went by Comfort Inn.
Comfort Inn are trying, in the process of building another miniature golf course here, which is rather ambitious, because there's a great deal of stonework involved, and even though it's been open for months, the little towers and things are still not finished.
They just don't sit still, these guys. The Terry Miron, Jim Murray, they just...
There's a symbol from the old Plattsburgh Traction Company when we had trolleys in Plattsburgh, and we've talked a lot about them in our program.
But getting back to Walmart, Gordy, go ahead.
Well, Walmart, there's always controversy because of the way Walmart and Sam's Club operate, and they have they're such a huge company that they tend to take business away from a lot of the smaller indigenous stores, and that's been the problem, especially in the rural areas of the Adirondack region. There was a bit of a controversy here in Plattsburgh, but it didn't rage as loudly as it has in other areas, like in places in Vermont. They were afraid it would change all the traffic patterns, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And up in the High Peaks area where they've been resisting it
And
for a long
Ticonderoga
time,
had
and Ticonderoga as well.
But I think as far as the greater Plattsburgh area, it's just blended in. As you know, there's 2 more businesses.
And they work very hard with the Walmart groups to become a part of the community. They do a lot of good stuff. They allow people to have bake sales inside. They raise money. They helped a lot of kids around Christmas time this year, as a matter of fact, connected with my program and others. And they hire local people. We're just passing the Walmart store now, and then their connection called Sam's Club on the other end. And that's the idea of that kind of store is a fairly recent development. Another one of the major contributors is BJ's. There isn't one here, but there is one over in Messina, which operates in the same way. It's almost like a warehouse stores, you know, where you buy things in larger quantities. You pay a yearly fee to become a member. You have to show your card when you enter the store. And theoretically, you buy things at a discount as a privilege for being a member. I think you can buy cars. I think you can buy insurance. You can buy a lot of things in connection with Sam's. A very interesting part of the development of this area is the fact that there is a street to our right-hand side, and the connection from this parking lot, which has never been opened. You can see over there where the street is closed. There was a huge amount of controversy about what this traffic would do on that road right there, and you can see it's not open and probably never will be, even though it was built. The neighbors over there were not very happy about that traffic situation.
I can't blame them. I don't think I'd want it going through my backyard either.
There you are. That's the way it stays, and I don't know what the status is, but I doubt if that will ever be open.
Okay, I'm going to switch batteries here, and we'll pick up heading down Cornelia Street.
I mean, even though that's crazy.
Yeah, there's Hulbert Brothers and Goss Tire, and we've got about 5 minutes left in this tape, Gordy, and we're just gonna let it run out. We might run out right in the middle of one of our important speeches, but this is
There's another plaza over on the left-hand side that was now called the Ames Plaza, that was called the Big N Plaza, and a number of things in the course of its history. It has two main anchor stores, Ames and the PNC Food Market.
And right here in this corner, Gordy, just if we were here a year ago,
Wow.
it would have been different, wouldn't it?
It would have been very different because it was originally the home of Channel 5, WPTZ, formerly WIRI television, and McMartin Motors occupied part of the building, and Little Caesars for a long time, and now it's gone.
Yeah, that's where I made my television debut, right there.
You got that. Ranback's Bakery, a real fixture in the area. KFC, normally some of these stores have changed.
Yeah.
Plattsburgh Electric was here, now it's Warren Electric.
Yeah, we went through this stretch when we came by with the mayor. And we certainly do appreciate Mayor Rabideau taking time off from the end of his last few days in office and the days he had to pick up his father to spend that hour with us. I think having the mayor who led the city throughout the 1990s was very important as far as recording the history of the city of Plattsburgh here in the end of the second millennium.
It gives us a little different perspective coming down Broad Street. get an idea as you look around at how much that local college has expanded over the years, when it wasn't that many years ago. It's certainly at the start of the century we're in now, there was just one building, Hawkins Hall, which wasn't even called Hawkins Hall back then, as part of the state normal school. You get an idea about some of the expansion now as we're driving right down through it. We'll make a left-hand turn. Onto Beekman Street and then head down Brinkerhoff Street. Get an idea where a lot of this housing we mentioned before, these beautiful private homes, originally private homes, and now made way for college housing.
Yeah, there's so many streets that we didn't go down, like Court Street would be one that we didn't go down, but it's just a 2-hour program. We wanted to pack in as much as we could. We hope people appreciate this look at this greater Plattsburgh area at the end of the decade, the end of the century, the end of the second millennium.
Hopefully people say, well, hey, my house was still there, you know? On the left-hand side, what is now Seton Catholic Central School, originally MAI. You can see the old building there. Still very viable part of our educational community. On the right-hand side, I know what it is.
It's some kind of prayer house. The name escapes me.
I know what it is, and I know the history of it, but I can't bring it into my...
And God will strike us down for this, Gordy.
From my brain to my lips, I can't bring it in. Regina
Maria
Retreat House, that's what it is.
And
Planned Parenthood on the left.
Bart and Wanda Gaffney, and they're praying in front of the Planned Parenthood.
Classic house over here on the right.
The
Plattsburgh YMCA has undergone many changes over the years. On the left is the library. Originally, the original school in Plattsburgh, called the Academy, was right near that site. Farther down, the original Methodist Church, which burned in a tremendous conflagration back in the 1950s.
All right, we're probably going to run out of tape very shortly here, but we did want to show you the Strand and some of the buildings here on Lower Brinkerhoff Street. Maybe we can just take a left and head back to the